Welcome back to Red Pen of Destiny for the first episode of the Why You Should Watch series, which will eventually lead into the new show of the decade award. Award. It's not really an award. Series, um, where we will go through every episode of every season of that show. For now, we're just doing a little sampler run of each show. Starting with the best show of 1971, though that is a close fight between the two Ronnies and this. Bless This House. So Bless This House is a pseudo-classic British sitcom. It's not really at the level of, say, Fawlty Towers, which was the real classic sitcom of the 70s. Even though I'm not a massive fan of it, it is very funny. Actually, I think it just had some controversy because of the of a very funny episode, actually, which is the sad part. But I digress. That's not about this show. So let's not talk about that. My phone is buzzing with news, quite literally. But Bless This House is about the Abbott family. With Sid Abbott, played by Sidney James, Jean Abbott, played by Deanna Coupland, Mike Abbott, played by Robin Stewart, Sally Abbott, played by Sally Geeson. They're the main four characters, and then occasionally they interact with their neighbors or other characters. Their neighbors being Trevor Lewis, played by Anthony Jackson, and Betty Lewis, played by Patsy Rowlands. It's an interesting last name. You think Roland would be the last name? But no, never mind. And it's just a nice home sitcom, ground that's been trod far too much, in my opinion. So it's rare that I say that I like one. But I like the characters. I like the way they do the characters. Sid is very... he's kind of like old-fashioned, but he kind of accepts his kids doing what was newfangled in 1971. It's kind of funny how old it is, and he actually reminds me a lot of my grandpa, which makes perfect sense because my grandpa was also a father in the 70s in Britain, so you can see why there would be similarities there. It's just sort of a pseudo grumpy attitude with a lot of sarcasm. Though my grandpa's not anywhere near as sarcastic as a sitcom character, obviously. But it's just sort of like a grumpy sarcasm, I think is the best way to describe Sid. And it's quite fun to watch. I think almost every scene has something that's either not be laugh out loud funny, but it's funny enough that you're engaged. And then Gene is very let the kids do what they're going to do. And this just sort of sits back and watches Sid screw up. It's very funny. But that brings us to the kids. Mike is a struggling artist who still lives at home and tries to avoid getting a job a lot of the time. And then his sister Sally, who seems to be school age, though I'll be honest, I haven't watched this show in a while. She's sort of school age, just sort of normal, going out with boys and whatnot, that sort of thing. Definitely acts young. But yeah, it's just good, solid family sitcom. It's very fun to watch, very enjoyable. It's not going to be my show of the decade, I am 100% certain, but for 1971, I do like it. It is enjoyable. It does start in black and white for the first one or two seasons. I'm not. I know season one is. I'm not sure about season two. This was before the British had completely transferred into color. I think you had to be like a big TV show to actually get color broadcast, or maybe I only found the black and white version because they were broadcasting both. Either one. I was able to find the show on Daily Motion. It's so old that I don't think anybody really cares about the copyright that much, to be honest. I doubt there's a way to watch it legally. which is unfortunate. Though I would encourage you, if you can find a way to watch it legally, to do it legally. But if not, Daily Motion is there. Um, yeah, it's good. It has some similarities to All in the Family, if you've seen that, a classic American sitcom. Though it's not quite as political as All in the Family, because All in the Family was really political, at least for the 70s. Now it's just normal. There's nothing weird about it. Um, but they were pushing some of the racism boundaries and stuff in the 70s, because you think today's bad. Back then was scary. And prejudice. Like, the main character of that is very prejudiced. Sid isn't completely prejudiced. He's maybe got a little hint of it, but I don't think he's really a problematic person in that regard. But yeah, that brings us to the end of this show. We'll be back eventually with the next show. But next week, I think we're doing Dr. Feelgood, the contender for Band of the Decade. Hope to see you then.